This is the Nintendo Wii, a games console that, if you were around in the late 2000s, you almost certainly played or at least saw. It sold over 100 million units in its lifetime. And today we're going to take a look at it and see what it's like to hack this thing, run Homebrew, and generally have fun with it in 2025. So we'll say for me, it's quite a nostalgic device. One of the reasons being it was certainly the first home console that I ever modded in any way. It was very easy to soft mod this thing, and I think that's always been the case. No matter how much Nintendo tried, there's always been workarounds. So yeah, on that front, really, really fun. And I have fond memories of doing that as a teenager, of loading up Homebrew and having lots of fun with it. So I do want to see what that's about now, if things have changed, if things have got better. But also, I think just in general, the Wii has a really great catalogue of games. And it's another one of those consoles where really you have to play the games on the original hardware. When the remote looks like this and has the built-in sensors and all sorts going on, really an emulator just won't do. So naturally, I wanted to pick up a Wii and I wanted to get it soft modded, so we can load my Wii library onto a hard drive and also run some Homebrew and just generally be able to play those Wii classic games again that I've kind of missed, if I'm completely honest. For me, when I did the PlayStation video a little while ago, this was definitely the next thing that came to mind, is I need to pick up a Wii. And that's what I've done. So today, let's see what we can do with this thing and let's get it soft modded and go from there. So a quick look at the hardware itself. Along the front, you have that slot loading disk drive, power button, reset button, a flap where you can put an SD card and also sync your controllers, and an eject button. And that's kind of it on the top. On the top here, my version does have the 4 GameCube controller ports. There should be a panel here as well, but that is missing. Not really an end of the world kind of situation, but still cool to have those. And then around the back, you've got 2 USB ports, which will be very, very useful. Your AV out port, power supply, and the port for that infrared sensor bar that senses the movement of the Wii controller. Along the bottom, you've got a fan intake, and actually we can see that our model number here is revision 1. So this is definitely one of the older Wii consoles. And that's kind of it, really. It's quite a nice little shape. It's quite a nice little thing. It's obviously designed to either be laying down with these rubber feet on the side, or it can be stood up as well, more rubber feet on the bottom. And it does also come with a little stand that you can put on to kind of tilt the console a little bit and gives it a bit of an interesting kind of like angles, I guess. Anyway, that's kind of not the important point here. The important point is let's get this modded and let's see how we do that in 2025. All right, so a couple of things that we are going to be using to do this mod is a SD card. I've just got a 64 gigabyte card here. Any size will do, really. I think it says you can do about 200 megabytes, so whatever, but you can also install Homebrew to the SD card. And then we also have a SSD with a SATA to USB adapter on it, just to load up our games as well. All right, let's head over to the computer. All right, so we'll be using a website called WiiHacks.guide. It seems to be part of a series that we've used in the past as well for things like the PSP. So makes sense. It seems very straightforward. It seems to have everything that we could possibly need to achieve that hack, to achieve the soft modding that we want to do. Gives you some key information as well about things like bricking and all that sort of fun stuff. The different consoles that are compatible, which is essentially every single type of console of the Wii U's retail versions out there. The only things that it won't work is development Wiis with these model numbers, so that's fine. And then it goes into a bit of detail about storage, which is also great. And yeah, you need 128 megabytes to run an exploit. But it will work with any sized SD card, which is pretty cool, as long as you're running a version of the Wii software that's 4 or greater, version 4 or higher, I believe. So that's fine. We're already running the latest version on there. And then things like You can use a 2.5-inch hard drive to run off Wii power alone, which is exactly what we want to do, to run off the USB power. And we're using an SSD, so it should draw even less power than a spinning drive anyway. I certainly remember back in the day when I did this the first time, I was using an actual spinning hard drive. So it's a nice development that, you know, SSDs are so cheap now. And this is just a 500 gig SSD that we're using. And then more information about network capabilities and stuff. We're not particularly worried about that because, frankly, I don't plan to do anything on the network that much, but maybe some Homebrew will want it. So we'll check it out. And we can then head over to the Get Started, which again gives you information on the different types of hardware that you have. So there's kind of 3 versions of the Wii. There's the Wii Mini, which basically removed the disk drive. And then there's the Wii U, which is kind of the upgraded one, but actually also runs a virtual Wii anyway. So you can still do Wii hacking, if that makes any sense. But most importantly, we have an actual Wii, and we do have an SD card. We don't have a Windows PC, but we do have an SD card. So we are going to use this WiiBrand manual method to hack. And you can also actually do things like installing Homebrew on Dolphin, which is pretty cool, which is the emulator. I've certainly used that in the past, but like I said, really for me, a lot of Wii games need that original hardware. So let's head over to WiiBrand, and there's kind of 2 different ways that you can do this. We're going to probably do it. Let's see, what does it suggest? We could probably just do it through the, yeah, by the looks of it, we can just do it through the WiiBrand Web portal by the looks of things, which is fine by me. So we need to power on our console and go into the Wii settings. Okay, so we're now set up with a view of the screen, so you can see this here as well. So we have the 2 different things going on, which is brilliant. So the first thing we need to do is we need to go into our Wii settings, and I can bring up that there. We need to take note of the system version, which is 4.3E, and then we need to have a look at our MAC address as well. So if we go into console information, and there is our MAC address here. And then we can head over on the computer to this. And over here we need to set up we're on 4.3E, and then we need to enter our MAC address as well. And then press one of these buttons. And it failed. I am assuming maybe the web version might be down for some reason. So we're going to go back and we're going to do the command line version instead. Okay, so I've copied the executables over to my home server, which is a Linux machine, and it is running on an x86 processor, so this should just work. So I should be able to do this, and then I'll have it just export to a folder, which I'll then copy over to the SD card. So, okay, cool. So that ran without a problem and created all the stuff. And as it shows, it's actually written to this file here. So we'll copy that structure, directory structure, over to our SD card. Okay. And now we're going to pop that into the front of our, so I've got the SD card, and we're going to just pop that into the front of our Wii, like so. And then we need to open the Wii and head over to the Wii menu. Now, I don't know if I need to reset the Wii now that I've plugged the SD card in. We'll find out. So it has found our SD card. It has got the right day, but the time is wrong. But anyway, here we go. I've opened the notifications, and there is our letter bomb. So we'll click that. So we can then press that. And as you can see, we have all the information here. So we're going to press continue. And then we're going to select install the Homebrew channel. We're going to install that now. And then continue. We're going to select BootMi, and we're going to install BootMi as an iOS. We're going to say yes, continue. Press continue again, and then we're going to return to the main menu, and we're going to press exit. And we have the Homebrew channel. Now, I do feel like at this point, there is a bit of controversy around the Homebrew channel. We're not really going to get into that in this video. Basically, it was found that the Homebrew channel was using some copyrighted closed source code from Nintendo, and kind of development has stopped on it. However, as far as a general user goes, this is still the best way to run Homebrew, if not the only real way. And also, there's no real need for any further development because it already does everything that you would want it to do. So I just wanted to put that in there, but yeah, do some research if that kind of thing is something that you would want to look into more. I'm personally not too much. I personally don't really have any problem with it because it's a very old system. Doesn't really matter that it's using Nintendo code to me personally, but yeah, there is something to consider anyway. All right, let's get some Homebrew set up and let's see what we can do with this thing. So it's actually several weeks later now. Before I was able to finish filming this video, I had to go on a trip, but I'm back now. And there was a few other bits that we needed to do in terms of setup. So I used HackMii to back up the system's NAND, which is the system's internal storage. So made sure to keep a complete backup of that before we started messing around with anything. It just kind of negates the possibility of really messing things up. You can always reflash that. So make sure to do that first. So the next thing I wanted to do was have the system automatically boot into Homebrew. I wanted to kind of remove the main home screen completely because frankly in 2025 it's not that useful. All the Wii services have all been shut down long ago, so you're not really going to be using that. You're probably going to want to use a third-party launcher screen anyway. So we used PryLoader and CISO as guided on the website to get this all set up, and essentially those things in combination allows you to select any Homebrew that you like as your launch application. This took a little bit of setting up and everything and getting it all configured correctly, but in the end we set up with UX USB Loader, which is the Homebrew that I'm going to use to launch ISO files, which is the main purpose of this. I want to be able to run all my Wii games from that SSD without having to change disks. So that was the main purpose there, and you can also then easily boot back into the Homebrew channel and access any other Homebrew that way as well. So for the purpose that I will be using this day to day, it's instant, it's set up, it boots straight into the games, and then if I do want to do anything else Homebrew wise, it's only one extra step to go. The other thing I got was a AV to HDMI cable that is still for sale on Amazon. This is just basically a straight through cable with all the components built into the cable to convert that AV signal that the Wii's putting out into an HDMI signal. And it does it pretty well, I think. You know, you're still never going to get an amazing quality here. It's still only 480p. It's not a high resolution image, but it comes out pretty nicely. It's certainly completely playable. And the great thing about using a cable like this is there's no extra power needed. Most of these like SCART or composite converters require external power, whereas this doesn't. It draws all the power it needs through either that AV socket or the HDMI. I'm not sure where it's getting its power from, but it gets it from the system. So there's nothing extra there cable-wise, which is nice. So very happy with that. That also meant that I could set up my normal screen capture setup and be able to get a screen capture of the Wii, so we don't have to look at my terrible old TV anymore. So with that all said and done, let's go and have a look at some Homebrew and see what we can do here. Everything loads straight up into this USB loader, UX USB loader, which seems to be a really nice kind of menu way to go through all your games. You kind of go through all the different ISOs that you have on your SSD, and you can load things in really easily. So obviously you can have your full collection here, Resident Evil, kind of just clicking about. Yeah, this works really, really well, and you can then just click one that you want to load and you can start it up. You can change any settings and anything like that. Now this should also work with GameCube games. I haven't been able to actually get that to work. For some reason, it will not recognize the GameCube ISOs. I've set everything up as the manual describes, but I've had no luck there at all. Nonetheless, the Wii games seem to load pretty well. I haven't done any like speed testing against an actual disc, but I dare say that it should load a little bit quicker off the SSD, even with that kind of USB 2. But as you can see, you can then just come straight in here and you can start playing your games. You can create save file. You know, it acts as if it's just loaded a disc. And that's really what I wanted. I wanted to be able to rip my collection. The collection can stay on a shelf somewhere and I can still play the games without having to get one every single time. All right, well, it took... of course, I picked the game that had the longest cutscene in the history of the world ever. But yes, it is now working perfectly. Oh, great, another cutscene. But it is now working, and as you can see, like, it works well. There's no two ways about it. Very happy with this indeed. But we kind of expect Wii games to work well on a Wii. That should be a no-brainer. So let's have a look at some actual homebrew. Obviously, the first piece of homebrew that we installed was that USB loader, and it's a good piece of software, but it kind of just does that. It displays your games in a nice way that you can download cover art and all that sort of stuff. So definitely nothing wrong with it in any sort of way. But what about other homebrew? What about other things that you can, in fact, do? So we're going to pop into the actual homebrew channel here, and we're going to have a look at some other things that I found and was able to get working. Of course, like all homebrew, there's more stuff out there. There's loads of stuff out there. Some of it working, some of it not so much. So nonetheless, kind of an interesting mix of things. And of course, the first thing I looked at has to be a couple of different kind of Minecraft clones that are about. So the first is, I think, an actual full port of an early version of Minecraft. And I mean, it's impressive. The controls are a little weird. So you kind of move around with the D-pad, and then you use the nunchucks to move your camera around. Trigger button is to jump, and it's just a little bit clunky to kind of get used to. But nonetheless, this is Minecraft. This is a version of Minecraft, an older version, but a version of Minecraft running on the Wii. This is very cool. The other thing we have to look at is ClassiCube, which is kind of a re-implementation of Minecraft. It's not actually Minecraft, but that also works pretty well. So here is a version of ClassiCube, and yeah, this also works really well. We're in a creative world, and there is kind of some interesting trying to use the Wiimote sensor to move your character around. It is overly sensitive, to say the least, and it is a little problematic. It does not work well. But if you really, really, really need to play Minecraft on the Wii, there are a couple of different ways you can do it. So that's kind of cool. Really, really like this. Let's have a look at something else. The other thing that the Wii does incredibly well is play other old Nintendo consoles. It has some really nice, very powerful emulators for SNES, for the NES, for things like this, which is the Game Boy. So if we just load up, so maybe you want to play Alone in the Dark on the Game Boy Color. Yes, you can, and you can do it right here, and it works incredibly well. And in fact, yeah, any Game Boy Advance game, all that stuff, it's working really, really well. This is, again, an absolute emulator powerhouse. I love this thing for being able to play essentially old Nintendo stuff, really. That's where it shines. And again, there's plenty of other Game Boy Advance, Game Boy Color, all those sorts of emulators. There's lots here. There is also stuff on here that has been made as ported from other things. For example, I never know how to pronounce it. Is it just you say V 6 times? I don't know. But there's this game which has actually been ported for the Wii. There are also lots of other homebrew stuff that people have been working on. Of course, you can install things like Linux on here, no problem at all. You can run Doom. There is loads and loads of options. I have to say, I have struggled to get some of those things to work on my Wii. Things are getting a little out of date in terms of guides, links, downloadable files, all that sort of fun stuff. But there is still an awful lot out there. So yeah, it's been really interesting. And we're going to wrap it up there, kind of wrapping it up a little bit, maybe more premature than I'd have liked, but the video has gone on a little bit. It took a little while to get everything ready. And like I said, I had to have a trip in the middle of making this video. Nonetheless, should you get a Wii in 2025? Yes. Should you mod it? definitely there is a great kind of addition to be had here. Obviously being able to play Wii games on the hardware that they are intended for, but also being able to play lots of older Nintendo consoles as well, in kind of one nice, small, compact package that will fit quite nicely into your media center. I think this is definitely a console that should be part of your retro gaming kind of collection. It is a lot of fun. I've enjoyed modding it. It's still very straightforward to do that. There's lots of options out there, so do go check that out. And I hope you've enjoyed this video. I know I've enjoyed putting it together. So please, if you have, do make sure to hit that like button and subscribe. I'm still trying to aim for 10,000 subscribers by the end of this year. It's looking less likely, so every single subscription really, really does help. Thank you very much, and I'll see you again for another one very, very soon. Bye for now.